everyone replies with, the Kardashians. It's like, get over it. We love sci-fi. Just get into that stuff. Just dig in. The Bajorans are like, oh my god, you're Space Jesus. Because, live action Trek is usually limited to what they can glue on a person's face. I care about Star Trek almost as much as I care about theater. Gaze in space! Hello, naughty children. It's Star Trek time. Hi, I'm Sawyer. Pronouns are they, them. I'll give the transphobes a moment to navigate away. Okay, so welcome. Today I'm going to be crocheting a really basic bitch ear flap hat with a pom-pom because I love pom-poms, and talking about Star Trek. I'm wearing my Quark t-shirt, which is very appropriate. So today I'm going to be making this hat out of this yarn, Shawl in a Ball, which is discontinued. I will put a link in the description to the remaining, I think they have 6 balls of this left in a different color, so I am very sorry. I started a whole other take with a different yarn, and then that yarn was horrible, so I threw it out. So making a hat out of Shawl in the Ball that comes in these very pretty colors, and I'm going to be using this stitch marker because it's worked in spirals, so I need to keep track of where the beginning is. So, and I thought the kitten was so cute, I had to share it with you. So, Star Trek, where do I even start? I'm just gonna give you a disclaimer that I'm gonna try and give you an intro to stuff, but I might just go off on tangents because I'm obsessed, and this is really meant for you to have on in the background anyway. So if you're not interested in Star Trek and just want to have someone's voice in the room with you, that's okay. You can just have this on. Star Trek, my favorite. So my gateway drug to Star Trek was The Next Generation. I haven't really watched much of the original series. The original series came out in the 60s. It's the one with Kirk and Spock. And then The Next Generation started coming out in the 80s and went into the early 90s. And is the one with Picard and Riker and Data and all those people. So I started watching probably when I was like 11... No, 10. So I got really into it. So it had already ended, I think. Or just ended. But yeah, and I quickly grew obsessed with Data in particular. If you don't know, Data is an android, which means he's a human-shaped robot. You kind of do, buddy. Just not the same ones. So I was really into TNG to the point where for my 15th birthday party, I got a Captain Picard cardboard stand-up, which I still have to this day. And he is really beaten up. He's old enough to drink now. And he's been through several moves. More than several. And, but he lives in my office, and I have a new cardboard stand-up. We'll get to my new cardboard stand-up. You probably saw it in the background if you watched my first video. But it is of my favorite Starfleet captain. So from now on, I am probably going to be referring to the Star Treks by their abbreviated names. The original series is TOS. The Next Generation is Next Gen or TNG. And Deep Space Nine is DS9. And those are the primary players for me, and anything else I'll just refer to by name, and you'll know what you might or might not know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so TNG got really into it, hashtag obsessed, and then it wasn't until college that I got into DS9. Deep Space Nine is my favorite show that's ever been on television, bar none. It is just my favorite show. And a lot of Star Trek fans consider it like the redheaded stepchild of Star Trek, because most of the Star Trek shows are about boldly going and being on a starship and going to the trouble. Whereas Deep Space Nine is staying in one place and the trouble comes to them. And Deep Space Nine just has like a kind of different tone. Like, they're right, it does have a different tone. But I am more interested in that tone. Basically, it's just a lot more political. And like a lot more about morality and shades of gray and stuff like that. Like, you know, like in TNG, everything's like really, like, usually ends on like an upbeat note and is like, we solved this and learned something today. And then on DS9, it's more like, well, this is a dubious moral problem. Let's contemplate it. So DS9, you kind of have, instead of like everyone on a starship, you have people on a space station. And the general setup is, at the beginning, is that you have this planet called Bajor, that's just been through this occupation. So like it's been occupied by another race, another species of alien for 50 years, and like beaten down and, you know, mined and resources stripped and like people put into slavery, all that stuff. So you got the Bajorans. They're just coming out of this occupation and scrambling to put things together. So with Deep Space Nine, you have Starfleet coming in. So like the Federation is like Earth and all its buddies, and you have Starfleet coming in from the Federation to give aid. But the space station of Deep Space Nine used to be owned by the occupying force, who are called the Cardassians, who predate the Kardashians' fame. I don't want to hear any jokes about Cardassians versus Kardashians. I'm over it. Everyone replies with, the Kardashians! It's like, get over it. So you have the Cardassian space station that was like a mining station and, you know, had captured Bajoran slaves on it. And so that's been taken over by the Bajorans and Starfleet. And the way that the command structure works is that you have a Starfleet commander, later captain of the station, and then a mix of Starfleet and Bajoran militia. So the first officer of the station is a Bajoran, and she was a terrorist, like a guerrilla fighter during the occupation. And she's a badass. We love her. We stan her. Major Kira. I want to be her when I grow up. So on Tumblr, there's a holiday that Star Trek fans celebrate, which is called Threshold Day. And Threshold Day is the anniversary of the day that the worst episode of Star Trek Voyager came out, which is obviously called Threshold. And the plot of Threshold is that one of the characters goes past the warp 10 threshold, and it causes him to de-evolve into like a giant salamander. And it actually won an Emmy for best like makeup design because they do these incredible prosthetics and he just looks disgusting as he's transforming. Like, it's very well done. But the writing is just terrible. The ending of the episode is that he and the captain have turned into salamanders and had salamander babies together. And they just like, this is the thing, like Chakotay, the first officer, just like leaves the babies on the planet that they were on, like just abandons them, and like they're able to re-evolve Janeway and Paris, but they just leave the babies. I'm like, couldn't they evolve the babies too? Like, you're just gonna abandon them? Like, what if they need care? You're like, what if, you know? So so anyway, Threshold, absolutely terrible. But Tumblr celebrates it once a year with like 1 million memes and a happy Threshold day. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Oh, I should show you my Cisco cardboard stand-up. He's over here. Please excuse the mess. He's wearing his Santa hat. But that's Cisco, our first black Star Trek captain. Captain Dad. I will say that when I got the cardboard stand-up of Cisco, which was recent, it was like within the past year, I loved it so much that I took a picture and I posted it on Tumblr and paid for its promotion on Tumblr to put it in front of more eyes. It's just like, everyone needs to know that I have this Cisco stand-up. And yeah, some people were like, why would someone blaze this? And then other people were like, this is true monarch behavior. I'm like, that's right. I am a monarch for posting my Cisco cardboard stand-up. Though I have to say, okay, so if I were going to buy a cardboard stand-up from Star Trek, I would want it to be Worf. Worf is my favorite character in any Star Trek. He was on The Next Generation, and then when Next Gen ended, they brought him on to Deep Space Nine because he was so popular. So starting in season 4 of Deep Space Nine, you also have Worf, and Worf gets way more of a character journey on DS9 than he did on TNG, just because of the way that the shows were structured. He falls in love, he gets married, all kinds of incredible stuff, and reunites with his son, and has to deal with emotions, and just Worf is the best. But you cannot find a cardboard stand-up of him. They do not make them anymore. And I tried finding one, like a used one, and I wasn't able to turn one up. And I found a cardboard stand-up of Dr. Bashir from DS9, and I ordered it, and it was on Mercari, and you can't trust Mercari. And yeah, the seller canceled the order. I was so bummed. I was like, oh, I want a Bashir stand-up. That would be so cool. Not that I have room for more Star Trek stand-ups. I do not. But if I did, I would have all the ones available. Just great stuff. But yeah, you can't get a Worf one, but a friend of mine who I lived with for a couple of years did have a Worf stand-up. So his Worf stand-up and my Picard stand-up got to be friends for a while, which was nice for both of them, I think. You don't want your cardboard stand-ups to be lonely. Okay, so it's a couple days later. I am wearing a different Star Trek shirt. It is trans starships. My cousin got it for me. When I texted her to thank her, she said, well, I saw it and thought, who do I know who's trans and loves Star Trek? It's me! I wanted to talk about the gays on Star Trek. So, what do I have to say about the gays? Well, I'll start with Garishir, all you Garishir fans out there, for Deep Space Nine. So, like, if you've seen the documentary What We Left Behind, that's like a more recent documentary about the making of Deep Space Nine. They basically acknowledge that if it weren't for Rick Berman, we would have had Garrick and Bashir as a couple. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the actors going on record and saying that they thought it should have been a reality. But I will tell this story. When I saw What We Left Behind in theaters, and I had just finished rewatching Deep Space Nine with a friend, and we had gotten used to yelling things at the screen. So it was with that I went and saw this. And in the documentary, they had digitally remastered 6 scenes from the show, and that's as much as we are going to get from that show, because while they remastered the original series and The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine just gets to look like it was filmed with a potato. We're just stuck with it. So they had remastered, near the end of it, they showed this scene from, I think the episode's called The Wire. And I'm not going to go into extreme detail about the episode, but basically, it's Garrick talking to Bashir, and Bashir asks, Garrick, of all the stories that you told me, which of them were true? And Garrick says, my dear doctor, all of them were true. And Bashir says, even the lies? And Garrick says, especially the lies. And because I was so used to calling things out to the screen, I just yelled, get married! really loud. And fortunately, the audience laughed. They weren't annoyed with me, or if there were people annoyed with me, I didn't have to hear about it. So, yeah, hopefully that didn't ruin anyone's viewing experience. But the fact is that Garrick and Dr. Bashir should have gotten married. It's so funny, like, they tried to set up Bashir as, like, the player character, like, the ladies' man character, but then they, like, introduced this relationship with Garrick, and, like, in the first episode, with Garrick, it's so obvious that Garrick is hitting on him. Like, and, like, when they interviewed Andy Robinson, the actor who played Garrick, they're like, what was Garrick's motivation there? And he's like, oh, he wanted to sleep with him. So, like, you heard it from the horse's mouth. Garrick was hitting on Dr. Bashir. So what else? Other gays. So, like, Discovery has a lot of gays. You had Stamets and Culber, and you had, I forget the engineer's name, the other engineer who shows up, but she's a lesbian and her partner died before the show. And then you have 2 trans characters. You have Gray, who was the Trill boyfriend who died. And then I don't remember the non-binary character's name, but it is extremely cute when Stamets and Culber kind of, like, adopt them. Like, I love found family stuff like that. It's so cute. But I was very excited when they were revealed to be non-binary. I think it was before I came out as non-binary too, but I was still like, this is great. Um, but yeah, and like, I really like there was a meme going around where they had Anthony Rapp as Stamets, like a gif of him saying I'm gay, and they surrounded a picture of Rick Berman with it. And for those unfamiliar, Rick Berman is he was like the executive producer of a lot of Star Trek, and we could have had a lot of gay stuff a lot earlier if he hadn't been such a homophobe. So yeah. But this is the thing, like, controversial opinion alert, but I think, like, even though they had, like, directly announced queer folk on Discovery, I still think that Deep Space Nine was the queerest Star Trek. Because, like, it was the first one that had a same sex kiss on it. You had, I think the episode's called The Rejoining, but it's, like, the episode where Dax and her and in a former life she was married to a former host of this other symbiont, and like they were husband and wife, but now they're two women, and like they have a cute kiss and they're reunited, but then it winds up not working out. But like, just like a lot of people interpret Dax as being trans, and I have to agree. I do think I interpret Dax as being trans, because like the deal with Dax is like, if you're okay, so if you're not familiar, she's a trill, which is this species that they're like normal humanoids except they have spots on them, and then some of them host these things called symbionts. That's like a worm that they put into their belly, and the symbiont carries the memories from all the previous hosts. So you have, like, you know, with Jadzia Dax, who is a main character for the first 6 seasons of Deep Space Nine, she has the memories of I think 7 previous hosts. So while she is Jadzia and like her own person, she also has all these memories that make her like slightly different than she was before joining with the Dax symbiont. Um so yeah. So like there's a lot of, you know, like a lot of talk about her, you know, having been a man before and now she's a woman, and you know, Cisco calls her old man because he knew her previous host Curzon really well. Um and they were friends, and now they're friends again. Um and there's like an episode where she runs into a Klingon friend who Curzon knew when he was alive, and the Klingon friend goes, the Klingon friend is like, Curzon, my old friend, and Jadzia says, I'm Jadzia now, and he goes, Jadzia, my old friend, and it's like, okay, she's trans and we love it. As long as I'm giving controversial Star Trek opinions, I'm gonna say this. Deep Space Nine fans, I hate Vic Fontaine. I hate him. Like, I really did not like that they introduced this character in a later season and he kind of like took over. Like, his way, the episode where he's introduced and it's like a bad fan fiction getting Oda and Kira together, they deserved so much better as characters, by the way. Like, I like them together, but just I hated the way that they handled that relationship in that episode. Like, the only good part is like the last 60 seconds where they finally kiss. Um Ugh, Vic Fontaine. I just hated what the writers did with him. Like, they just shoved this wedge in, and they're like, isn't this cool? We had the best idea for a holodeck character. Isn't he great? And I'm just like, no, he's not great. He's really annoying. And this isn't like dissing the actor. The actor was really great. He was a good singer. Like, good job. But I don't like Vic Fontaine. I don't think he should have been in the show. And that's one of my controversial opinions for the day. And I really hate that in What We Leave Behind, the final episode, it like has that final scene in Vic's bar. And I'm like, we have been in Quarks since episode 1. And we end with Vic Fontaine? With Vic hecking Fontaine? Give me a break. Loxana Troy, like, I would write sonnets to Loxana Troy. I love her. She is a queen. Like, daughter of the 5th house, holder of the sacred chalice of reeks, heir to the holy rings of Beta Zed. Like, we stand a legend. Loxana is everything. And, like, when she turns up on Deep Space Nine, she has, like, a couple of episodes where she's on Deep Space Nine, and she just hits on Odo so bad. I think she's on 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine. But, like, the first episode, she's, like, hitting on Odo so bad, and Odo's, like, trying to let her down, but he's, like, so socially awkward that he doesn't know how to. And then finally, like, they're stuck in an elevator together, and he's like, listen, every 16 hours I turn into a liquid. And Loxana's like, I can swim. I'm just like, love her. The best. Like, what a response. The best. Okay. So, here's a good story. So, one year, my roommates and I decided to throw a Star Trek themed party, which was fantastic. And we, like, did all of our food up to be, like, Star Trek food and drinks. And our main gag that and, like, we already had a Captain Picard and a Worf stand up in our living room. Like, we barely had to decorate. And, like, we had 2 screens, like, one in the living room and one visible on the, what do you call it? The enclosed porch. And we played Star Trek episodes on them, like, silently with the captions on while the party was going on. I'm giving up on ear flaps. I've had enough of ear flaps. It's just gonna be a basic bitch hat, and we're all gonna have to deal with that fact. But I'm too lazy for ear flaps. This isn't for anyone, so yeah, no ear flaps. So the cool thing we did at the party was we ordered a bunch of natural colored pom-poms like that go on hats or keychains, and in all different sizes. And we hid them all over the apartment in, like, drawers and behind things on shelves. And as the party went on, like, we started the party with, like, a few of them out on surfaces, and then as the party went on, we snuck out more of them until the end of the party, just every surface was just covered in them because they look like tribbles, so they were reproducing. So that was our joke. It was a hit with the guests who were familiar with Star Trek, which was most of them. Everyone will be like, wow, Sawyer, why did you make a hat for no reason? And I'll say, I did it for my adoring public of 4 followers. I hope all 4 of you appreciate me making this hat. It's gonna look really bad on me, which is why I'm not going to wear it. But maybe you know someone who would like to wear it. Let me know in the comments. Alright, so we're looking at puffs. Which puff is the appropriate puff? Pink puff. That one's pretty good. This other pink puff. Actually, that one's better than this one. Let me see. Yeah, I like that pink puff better. green puff. No. This brown puff. Oh god, no. Black puff. Eh. The gray puff. Nah. There's a rainbow puff. That one might be the one. Maybe. And a white puff. Surprisingly, I don't really like the white puff. Okay, so it's down to pink or rainbow. Pink. I think it's gonna have to be the pink. I think that's pretty cute. Okay, we have Anne Hat. She is cute. We love her. All right. Let's wrap up. So today has been Star Trek. And by today, I mean the other day and today. This is like, we don't know what's going on with this. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. If you, all four of you, or the one of you who came back, thank you. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what other topics you'd like me to chat about, and I'll see you hopefully next week. Bye.